Good morning, Eddie. Firstly, you were without Alan San Maximo at Brentford last weekend. What's the situation with him and his latest injury?
I think we said at the time, I don't think it's a serious injury, but he's away getting treatment at the moment. He's not with us. But hopefully at some stage next week he'll come back and be available very soon.
And Miguel Almiron, how much closer is he to being available for you?
Yeah, he's done really well. He's ahead of schedule at the moment. So fingers crossed, he gets through training and could be available very soon.
Over the last few weeks, your substitutes bench has looked particularly strong, and in some of the games you've brought players on to make an impact, whether that's to help you secure a result or, in the case last week, help to change a game. I'm sure those players would rather be starting, even though they understand your decision, but how pleased are you with the way that they've responded, whether it's Anthony Gordon, who's come on recently to good effect, or Wilson or Isak, whichever one's been on the bench?
Well, it's a squad game. We're going to need everybody to contribute, whether you're starting or not. You can have an effect and change the game and hopefully get a positive result for us in either phase. So I can only pick 11 players, but I've got a strong squad when everybody's fit, very strong squad. So I think the understanding of the group's been really good. I've had no internal issues. Of course, when players aren't playing, they're disappointed, but I think that's the same at any level. But I've got to try and make the right decisions for the team.
Another player who's come on a few times recently is Matt Ritchie, and he hasn't had a lot of football really in the last year or so because of injuries and other factors, but why is he still an important player and figure and voice for you in the dressing room?
His leadership skills are second to none. I've seen a real change in Matty through the years. Obviously I managed him as a young player with the fierce determination to get to the very top when I first started to work with him. And now I'm seeing it the other side, where he's learned, developed a lot of aspects in terms of leadership and being a role model for the younger players. His wisdom and his experience has been invaluable to the group this year. He, at certain moments, can know what to say to a player to help them in their career, really, in their journey. I will make it clear, though, I still think Matty can play. You know, he's a top player. We see that every day in training. He has the ability to create and score goals. I don't think he's ever lost that ability, so we love him to bits.
Is he potential coach or manager material?
I think if he wants to be, I think that will very much be in his court, but I do see an opportunity for him if he wanted to go into that field, that he'd be excellent at it.
Aston Villa, your opponents this weekend under Unai Emery, have really picked up and improved and shot up the table, haven't they? What do you think he has changed since going in there 5 or 6 months ago?
I think he's got a clear philosophy. I think when you watch them play, they very rarely change what they do. Tactically, they're interesting. They're going to be a tough challenge for us. We're going to have to get certain parts of our defensive structures right, or they give us big problems. So I think credit to them for that. I think they've got a goal scorer as well in Ollie Watkins, who's done very well this season. He's scored a lot of goals, especially of late. So I think that's a good mix, and defensively they've been solid. So their run is a strong one, and at home they've been very good. So another really tough away game for us.
Given their position in the Premier League table, would you say that, like you, they are in with a really genuine shot of Europe next season?
Well, they are, yeah. They're very much in the mix. Their form has been very strong and consistent, so we absolutely respect them and know that we're going to have to be at our best levels. We're going to have to be better than we were in the first half at Brentford if we're to get a positive result.
And finally, last year you went to Aston Villa to sign Matt Targett, initially on loan before making it a permanent transfer in the summer. He's another player we've not seen too much of this season. He has had an injury, and then there's been the form of others in that position. But where would you say Matt Targett's Newcastle career is at right now?
I think Matt's firstly a great lad to work with. I've really enjoyed coaching him and working with him. I think last season his effect on the team was undoubted. Well, the role that he played in us staying in the division is an incredible contribution, and hence why we signed him. Been really unlucky this year that Dan's come in. The team's done so well, and I've picked a consistent team, or consistent back four. He's waiting for his opportunity. I think when he gets it, he'll take it. But that's the game we're in.
Thanks, Eddie. Keith?
Eddie, you touched on Maxi at the top there, the fact that he goes back to France to get treatment. I know he's done that before, even before your time here. How does that work with your medical staff and what he does over there, and how comfortable are you with that situation?
I'm comfortable with it. I've always have been. I think I'm a firm believer in you don't have to be in Newcastle to get the best treatment possible. It's always about how can the player come back as quickly as possible in the best physical condition. If that means going away to see someone that you've worked with before and you really like, I've got no issue with it. We do send a staff member with him, so he's not alone. We have contact, and as I say, that staff member is Newcastle, thinking of Newcastle United. So I think that's an important mix. He's not just going and we've got no idea what he's doing. So the work he's doing is good, and it's all, as I say, about trying to get him back as quickly as possible.
And Anthony Gordon, obviously unhappy, frustrated, shall we say, when he came off the pitch at the end last week at Brentford. He is feisty when he's on the pitch. I think that's fair to say. I think that's probably what attracted you. I think you said that before to buy him here. Have you had to address the situation, speak to him this week regarding what went on last Saturday?
Yeah, we've had a conversation. I think you're absolutely right. His enthusiasm, aggression, motivation levels are really, really high, and I think he's fiercely determined to do well and achieve. And it is one of his hallmarks, and it's one of his strengths, and we want to embrace that. We love that about him. But I think in certain moments, he needs a cool head as well. So, yeah, I think it's about trying to explain the situation, talk through it. I've got no issue with him at all. He's trained really well this week. He
seems the complete opposite off the pitch. He seems a very sort of chilled character off the pitch. Is he just different when he crosses that white line?
Yeah, he is, and I think that's what you want. You want good people off the pitch. You want good role models and good professionals that are living their life right to try and be successful. And on the pitch, you want people to absolutely want to win and do everything in their powers to try and achieve that and be really passionate about what they're doing. So I've got no issue with that, and that's part. As I say, you take that away from him, and he's not the same player. So he needs that. Just needs a little bit of refining around the edges. But no, let's focus on the positive. What he did when he came on the pitch last week, he changed the game for us. He was really good.
You spoke to Razor there about Unai Emery, and obviously he's doing terrifically well. Like you, the two form teams, two of the form managers in the division. The owners here obviously know what they're doing when they're looking for managers, don't they?
Well, yeah, certainly Unai's done a great job going into Aston Villa. Not an easy situation to walk into, but the team's done very, very well. It's been, as I say, really consistent on a really good run. They've got a good mix about them at the moment. They've got good players playing a really good system and style of football. So, yeah, full credit to him.
Amazing week for you and the team last week. 9 points from 9. You're sitting there in that third position, albeit that it is tight there. Is there a growing belief within the squad, that you can qualify for the Champions League this season?
I think there's a growing belief that we're getting back to our best form after a difficult period around January time where we were a little bit frustrated with ourselves in the Premier League. I think the Wolves win, I've said, was a big moment for us. It got us back to winning ways. We've backed that up to also 3 really tough games in 6 days last week that were, it was a big test for us mentally, physically, came through it. Yeah, and now we go into what I see as the last set of games this season, but a big test to come. Nothing's decided. We've got it all to prove.
I just want to ask you one more on Joe Linton, because he was outstanding at Brentford last week. Obviously, he created the goal and the comeback, scored 2 at West Ham before that. Wherever you play him, he seems to fit into the team seamlessly. When he arrived at the club here, he was a club record signing, £40 million as a number 9 as a striker. You've obviously moved him into midfield. He plays different positions. I wonder now, looking at him and how he's developed, what he is worth to this club and what he is worth to you.
Invaluable, I'd say, because players that can play different positions and not just play them, but play them really effectively, they're worth their weight in gold. So to have the ability last week to change system and to move him into a different role, to use his physicality to try and help us with Brentford's aerial play, he was incredible. Jules, he took a big threat of theirs out the game, but not only that, he then started to dictate the game with the ball with Bruno. So it was a really good partnership to see them together. He then sort of creates the first goal for us. So it's a totally all dynamic display. But Joelinton, from minute one since I come in, has really committed to what we've asked him to do. He's been incredible in any position that I've asked him to play, and we love him.
He looks not bad at that table. Is it table football you've got outside as well?
He's handy. Him and Bruno together, they're tasty. So I wouldn't want to. Well, I have taken them on, and it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty.
Thanks, Andy. Well, Neddy, the official Twitter account described Newcastle as relentless at the moment. How would you describe the team currently?
Well, I want us to be relentless. Relentless in the pursuit of winning, really. I think that's where we want to be. I want to see a team every week that is determined to try and win. Will do everything it can to achieve that aim from themselves, for the supporters. I didn't really see that in the first half last week. It was a disappointing 45 minutes. It certainly returned in the second 45, and although slightly fatigued, the group gave everything, and in the end it was a great day.
You're the second fastest Newcastle United manager to 100 points behind Kevin Keegan. I know you're not personally driven by those individual sort of records, but how does that sort of statistic make you feel, given what Kevin did here?
It's nice to hear. It's a surprising one for me, because you're just so focused on day to day, game to game, that you don't ever get a chance to. Well, I don't sit there and analyse stats of the team going back to when we first came in, but it's nice to hear, and in unbelievable company there.
Speaking of statistics, I was looking at Opta the other day, and Fabshare and Sven Botman officially the best centre-back partnership in the Premier League. Given you're a former rugged centre-back, what makes them such a good partnership, would you say?
I think they do complement each other really well. I think we wouldn't have had the defensive record if they didn't, the amount of games they've played together, but I think they've got a good understanding. Both very good with the ball, first and foremost, which helps us no end, in terms of building our attacks and being a good attacking unit. But defensively, they've really excelled. I think they've aerially been very good. They've been mobile. They have to be with how we play, and they've covered the back line really well, in conjunction with the fullbacks, who have also been outstanding for us. I think it's been a really big team effort from them.
Speaking of partnerships, are Alex Isak and Callum Wilson bringing the best out of each other, both on and off the pitch at the minute?
Yeah, I do think there's a lot in that. I think they're both pushing each other, whether they're playing together or alone. Their presence is sort of around each other, pushing ech other to great things at the moment. It's great to see that we've got two strikers in form, two strikers scoring goals. The team needs it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future.
Obviously, we saw the return of the Champions League this week. And I know you said before that the fans should dream. Did you watch any of the games? Did you allow yourself even a slight moment of imagining what the Champions League music would sound like at St James's?
I did watch the games, or some of the games, as I always do, because I'm interested in football and tactical side. It definitely wasn't a watch looking at next year, because that's too far away and there's too much that can happen. But it was a look to the tactical side of the game, which I'm very interested in.
Just finally, it was Amanda Staveley's birthday, of course, this week. I just wondered how your kind of friendship, I suppose, has grown with her ever since you joined, and sum up the job that she has done for the club and for the city as well, to a lesser extent.
Well, I always think when you're working for a football club, you're working for the club, but also you're representing the city, as you say. I think she's been a brilliant ambassador for Newcastle United. I think her passion, her drive to make Newcastle successful is very clear for me to see from the first few conversations I had with her. A very, very special lady, and I'm really enjoying our working relationship, and trying to push Newcastle on to great things.
Top man, thanks, Andy.
Andrew? Going back to that Brentford game, the second Brentford penalty must have been incredibly frustrating for you at the time. Have you received an apology from VAR about that decision?
No, we haven't, which is a surprise to me, because I still don't think it's a penalty now. It is what it is. It's done. It's dusted. We move on. But I was very, very surprised when I saw the incident very quickly at the side of the pitch. I didn't think it was going to be given as a penalty. I didn't think it was a clear and obvious error. I wasn't even sure it was a foul, to be honest, because I thought the player might have been going down before contact was made. So I was really, really surprised to see the penalty given, and I thought that was an example of VAR not working as it should do.
You talked already about the first half in that game and the relentlessness that you've talked about. Why does that not happen though in that first half? Is it tactical or is it a mindset in the players?
Well, it can happen. It's football. Your team will always have good and bad moments within every game. That was a bad spell for us. I think when we reflected on it, we probably looked at it a few things: a bit of fatigue, a bit of mental fatigue as well, and sometimes a change and a shake-up can be a really powerful thing, and that's what we did in the second half, and it paid dividends. But we returned to more like ourselves mentally rather than anything else, and that made the difference.
So obviously there was two changes as well in players. I mean, some might argue we'll start the way you finished the last game with those two changes again for the game tomorrow. What do you say to that?
Yes, it's an option. It's a possibility for us. I think what we try and do is analyse every opponent. We obviously analyse ourselves at the same time, and then you try and pick a team that can go and win the game. So I've said all along, all options are available to me. I'll try and pick the right one to always benefit the team, not the individuals. It's all about trying to pick a team that wins the game.
Bruno Guimaraes has, again, his ongoing ankle issue flared a bit at the beginning of that game in the warm-up. What is his situation with that ankle? And are you happy that it will be available tomorrow and going forward?
Yeah, I think he's just got. I don't know if any of you have suffered with ankle problems. You can twist your ankle quite badly. It can be really sore initially, and then it calms down, and you're good to play. And I think he's in that moment. There's obviously a slight concern there that he keeps twisting it and tweaking it, but he's in good hands with the medical team. They've checked him. They're happy with him. At the moment, he's fully fit, and we hope he stays that way.
The Premier League has announced the decision that gambling firms' sponsorship will be removed from shirts from 2026, I believe. Obviously, Fun 88 are on the front of Newcastle's shirt, and obviously, as you know, their sponsorship was due to end at the end of this season. I mean, broadly, do you welcome that decision? And what's your thoughts on that decision?
Yeah, I'd say I welcome that decision because I think, for me, I look at the young people, the impressionable young supporters. I've got 3 young boys myself, and gambling's an enjoyable thing to do if you're doing it in a controlled way. But obviously, you've seen, or I've experienced myself through people that I know, some really difficult situations regarding gambling. So anything that we can do to educate and help people in that situation, the better.
And any decision on the new sponsorship for Newcastle shirts? When might we hear who will be the front sponsors next season?
I've got no idea. We'll let you know.
Thanks.
Thank you, broadcasters.
Damien? Eddie, can I ask about Joe Linton? When he came here with that big price tag, he had a really difficult first couple of seasons. Have you seen a player transform his career so spectacularly?
It's difficult because I haven't lived that experience with him. So I've met a player who I instantly really liked on the training pitch first day. I've always said he really struck a chord with me, how he performed in training. I then got to know him and thought, unbelievable character, great lad, really determined to do well. So I've only sort of seen the positive side. I didn't live that experience with him during the first couple of seasons. But obviously what I hear of what happened, I don't think, I'm struggling to rack my brains that I can think of a transformation like it. But I'm so pleased for him, and he deserves all the credit because he's really driven, motivated, keen to listen, learn, improve. He's never happy. So he's one of the players that's the last off the training pitch every day. He's really committed to his profession, and I love to see people with all those characteristics then do well and succeed.
You talked about in the past about your time out of the game in the dossier you drew. Are you constantly adding to that? And given the success you've had, has anyone asked you for a look?
No, actually, they haven't, and that's a bit frustrating. I wouldn't mind showing someone. They'd probably fall asleep after about 3 seconds. Yeah, I'm always adding to it. I think the beauty of football is you never stop learning. Even in my position, been managing for a number of years. I say every day, but week on week, you're adding knowledge. You're thinking of different things. You're potentially seeing the future and what you can add to your team, things that you've never sort of experienced before. So we're at the very top end of the Premier League, and I think we have to stay very current. We have to change with things that are happening, themes that are happening, because football changes so quickly. So I hope that I'm still learning and improving myself for many years to come.
Craig?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Tomorrow will be the first time you come up against Unai since events of November 2021. Do you ever allow your mind to go back to that period and think, what if, what might not have been? And is it fair to say events of that, that 24 hours, it was life-changing for you?
Yeah, without a doubt it was. Do I allow myself? No, I don't really. Maybe I should, but I don't. I very rarely tend to go back. I always believe that your life sort of takes the journey that it's supposed to go on, and I was due to come here. That was sort of what happened, but obviously I was here because Unai turned the job down. So I'm delighted that he did. And fate has a strange way of working. Now we come together. I've got nothing but respect for him and the job that he's done and the career that he's had. But very thankfully made that decision.
Yeah. Just take us back to that. I know we've spoken this before, but that moment when you realise everything's turned on its head, what are you like?
Well, you can see what I'm like week to week. Pretty consistent and similar with my reactions, really. So I was like, okay, it's not going to happen. I'll move on, and I don't know where I'll end up going. And then it flipped round, and it's that moment. Take a deep breath, and you're into a relegation battle with no time to think. Only survival was on our minds. So it really was a switch where you go, right, it's time to get back to work, and just looking forward to the challenge.
And just lastly, on Anthony, was there an acceptance on his part that what he did, perhaps he was in the wrong?
Yeah, I think he accepted that he was overly emotional, and we moved on very quickly. We had a 10-15 minute conversation where it's really important that I help him. He's a young player, so much talent and ability, but he needs help to get to where his career should go, and fingers crossed we can work on that together.
Was that the extent of the discipline, the conversation? Was there nothing beyond that in terms?
No, I'll always view every incident individually, but no, we moved on very quickly.
Thank you.
Smiles?
You said regarding Aaron should be available very soon. It was ahead of schedule. Could he be involved tomorrow?
Possibility. I think we'll need to see how he trains today. He's had limited training time, but he's looked really good.
What kind of influence has he been, or how has he been around the place since that injury? Because we're so used to seeing what he's like on the pitch. What's he like off the pitch, especially when he's not available?
The smile's still as big with Miggy. He's just got that personality. He's always in a positive frame of mind. That's one of the things we love about him. So he's really committed to his rehab. He's gone away a couple of times to get injections. He spent a little bit of time in Barcelona getting treatment. But he's come back, and he's really kicked on. He's a very professional lad, and hence why he's back earlier than maybe we thought he would be.
Just finally for me, any change in the Ryan Fraser situation?
No.
Don?
Eddie, Thomas Frank was talking about the dark arts after the weekend game. Do you think there's an unfair perception of your side?
Yeah, I don't even know what the dark arts are. So if someone could explain them to me, that would be great. I've said many times we just do what we can to try and win, but always within the laws of the game.
Does it, because obviously Eric's comments earlier in the season, does it bother you, and do you think it does have an impact on referees?
Well, it shouldn't do. Referees should just referee the game as they see, and I think, as I say, someone needs to sit down and explain what they are. I mean, Eric made his comments quite clear about time wasting, but we didn't want that in any game. We want to try and impose ourselves and have a quick game and the ball in play. So goes against sort of, I understand the statistic that our ball's in play the least, but that could be due to a number of reasons, not us slowing the game down.
And just lastly, Callum Wilson in his podcast was saying he was frustrated and angry not to be in the team at Brentford after West Ham. Is that the reaction you want?
Yeah, I think all players are when they're not in the team. I think it's always the reaction is the key thing. It's controlling your emotions, keeping sometimes your thoughts inside, although I'm very open to conversations with any player. But then it's when you enter the pitch, it's taking out that emotion on the game and making sure you play so well that you don't come out the team again. And Callum did brilliantly when he came on against Brentford.
Okay. Simon? Yeah, just one off the beat of the actual games. A couple of websites have linked you with Declan Rice this week, saying the club's had talks or whatever behind the scenes. I know you won't talk about actual names, but that bracket of player at 80, 100 million, whatever it'll be, are you in the market for that kind of player, or can you sign that kind of player in the summer? Does it depend on Champions League? Because we've seen Liverpool rule themselves out of Bellingham this week.
That's a difficult question to answer. Look, we want to try and build the best squad that we can. I think a lot will probably depend on what competitions we're playing in next year, as to what we can and can't do.
So if there's a transformational signing at 100 million, do you think there'll be capacity to do that? And I know it depends on the various variables, but would it be something you're prepared to do, put a lot of eggs in one basket kind of thing?
I think we'll always try and gauge it on every situation. So I think our strategy last summer was to try and find quality players for the positions that we needed, not bring in a host of players that don't necessarily improve our starting 11 or our squad. I don't think our strategy will change. We want elite players because we've got an elite squad. So if we do add anyone in, they've got to be better than the players we have.
Chris?
Morning.
Morning.
You mentioned Saint-Maximin's away in France. I mean, have you spoken to him? How is he feeling? Because it seems that this season has just been so stop-start from him. Whenever he finds that form again, he picks up another injury and then he's back to the start with it.
Yeah, I spoke to him last night. He was in good form. Yeah, it has been a bit stop-start for him. I think he had one major injury, which was the one he picked up against Wolves. And then after that, he's had just very minor complaints, but still enough to disrupt the rhythm of his performances. And he was in a really good run of form before this injury, which is a real shame for him and for us. But he's got to deal with it. He's got to get right, and then try and get his rhythm back quickly.
Because the way that he plays, I suppose, he's a very dynamic sort of player. Is this always going to be a risk with him that he could have injuries?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's quite a robust for the type of player that he is. I think he's robust, and I think this has come as a surprise to him and for us. The number of just very minor injuries that he's had to his hamstrings. I think he's had them on both sides, so it's not a concern for us because I think he can get over them quite quickly. It's just, as he's a rhythm player, as most players are, he needs those games to build his fitness up, and then when he comes out again, he has to start all over again to rebuild that real sharpness that you need at this level. So it's a blow.
And on a different player, I mean, Kieran Trippier, you signed him last January and he got injured and didn't play much that last season. I know a lot was said about what he did sort of off the field, but this season I think he's by far, in the Premier League, got the most passes into the box, and he's obviously crucial to your attack. How much of a difference has he made to the team itself on the pitch this season in terms of what he brings? Yeah,
he's quite a unique player. I don't think there's many fullbacks like him. I think his range of passing gives us a totally different outlook. That's always been Kieran's way. I think he's very progressive with his passing. He, as I say, can hit most areas of the pitch from a right-back position. Very much a goal creator. He always has been in his career. One of the best crossers of the ball I've ever seen. So I think if you took that player out of our team, we would massively miss him. I can't speak highly enough of his contribution, both attacking-wise and being part of a back four that's been very, very good.
I just find on that, having Dan on the other side as a sort of, he would see himself as first position to centre back who can sort of tuck in. Does that allow Kieran to do what he's done as well? Has that allowed the way that your team's played this year as well in time?
Yeah, I think since that Fulham game when they all came together, it sort of gave us a really nice balance because Kieran naturally pushes on, plays quite high, and Dan tucks in, and we almost then make a back three. So yeah, that balance is something that sometimes you don't see until people play together, and it certainly worked for us. But nothing is forever. Those players still have to produce the performances that keep that balance in check.
Kieran?
Eddie, you don't want a player who's happy to come up, but did Anthony feel the need to apologise?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, he felt the need to apologise. But as I say, I understood, a part of me understood why he acted like he did. I didn't condone it. You don't want to see any player reacting like that because suddenly you'll have a team that looks like it doesn't have the discipline that it needs. So I made a decision based on Anthony going down, holding his ankle, based on the fact that there were seconds left on the clock to try and do what I felt I needed to do to win the game. And he needed to accept that, and if he had an issue, come and see me in private. That's how I felt he should have acted in that situation. But it's a young player learning about the game and learning about us at the same time, so I've got no issue with him.
And going forward, you speak about elite players, to improve your team. How important is it that they buy into that kind of team-first culture you built here?
It's vital. We've had success this year based on that one principle, really. The team is the most important thing. Of course, we want individuals within the team to excel and have great seasons, and I think a number of the players have, but never at the expense of the team, and that has to be at the forefront of the players' minds.
Can I ask you finally, the training ground, how's it coming along at the moment?
It's going well. Yeah, it's going good. I think the whole environment is changing. The players are noticing that change. I think they're enjoying seeing that change and being able to stay at the training ground in better conditions for longer. I think the whole area in the building's better, out of the building's better, and they're still not finished yet. So really exciting times for us all when we're here so long.